Order in the court. Be seated.
It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here with Shannon Salmon-Haas, San Antonio, and we're going to be talking about the law on the radio. You see, in the beginning, God had one law: don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then he gave Moses the 10 Commandments. And now we have municipal, state, and federal lawmakers that won't stop making new laws that impact you without you knowing it. So our mission is to help you understand the laws, and today we're going to be talking about the federal funding freeze that was in President Trump's executive order. But before we get started talking about the law, let's begin with prayer. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts and blessings that you give to us. Please forgive us for our sins, for our mistakes, for doing the wrong thing and failing to follow your will. Help us to follow your will more closely. Help us to understand the law and the gospel and your purpose for our lives. Help us to do everything we do for the good of your people, for our own good and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Now it's time to discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. Today we're going to be talking about the federal funding freeze, but I wanted to remind everyone that this is not political. I just want to talk about the law, what it is, and how it affects people. And I'm not saying that it's good or bad.
If we get too intense or we start to fight, we'll just say federal funding freeze 3 times fast and see if we can
I like words that begin with the same letter.
Yeah.
What's that mean in English?
Oh, gosh, I won't know.
You don't remember all the language types and how to write a good story and all that?
No.
Okay.
Were you an English major?
No, I was not. I didn't really have that much fun in English class. But let's talk about the federal funding freeze. Well, before we do that, I wanted to ask you about what your abuela duties have been this week.
Oh, yeah.
How are you healing the community by making soup?
Well, it's non-confrontational, and it's a safe space where we're just, everybody loves soup, so we don't have to fight. You can come to this safe space, and it doesn't matter if you're on a certain political party or not, and we're just humans, and everybody loves soup. I don't know. There's just something magical about soup.
I think so, too. It warms you up.
Yeah, and it's been kind of dreary out, and I've just been craving.
Do you cook soup for your family every day?
Yeah, pretty much. How did you know? Yeah, but I don't video it every day because it'd get really, really boring because they like the same kinds of soup. Yeah, I currently have 2 different pots of soup in my house at the moment.
Yum.
I feel embarrassed now. That's kind of weird, isn't it?
No. Caitlin brought home soup from a friend's house.
Yeah.
And it was different than I had ever had. It wasn't, the vegetables and the chicken were not cut up. It was like this whole chicken in the soup, a whole potato.
Like a leg or like a whole chicken?
Like a leg.
Okay.
A whole potato, a whole carrot. And I asked Chris, I said, why do I have to do all the work? The abuela did not cut these things up.
You might be dealing with a caldo there.
I think so.
Yeah,
so
but you've had caldo before. But at least
on purpose.
But the accidental caldo.
Well, I would have never thought to like leave the chicken on the bone.
Right.
And then leave a whole potato in there.
Yeah. Well, it does. I can see myself doing that.
Okay.
But I would cut it up after, because sometimes I do that. It's easier to cut after it's cooked.
Oh, that's true.
You know?
Right.
So why am I going to be cutting and then cooking?
Right.
Cook it and then cut it.
Good idea.
Yeah. There you go. Tips from Shannon.
What else did you cook?
Well, you talk about you. Did you do any random recipes? Did you decide on a name yet for your new venture?
Well, I did make some amazing tacos. And I was going to film it, but all I had on was a white t-shirt, and I think my fashion crowd would cancel me for behaving that way.
Yeah, definitely.
So I didn't film it, but I did make...
I would have defended you, though.
I made eggs and refried beans and cheese, and then I wrapped it in a flour tortilla, and then I put it in the air fryer to make like a fried chimichanga egg bean burrito.
Wow.
And then I took it out, and then I smothered it with New Mexico red chili sauce, and it was fantastic. But I mean, I'm basically a bachelor. I mean, I'm still married, but Chris works, and so I just basically cook for myself.
Right.
And she would not want that anyway.
Yeah.
So it's so weird to be eating the same things at my age now,
Right.
that I ate when I was in college.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking that. I didn't want to be unkind, but I was thinking this might catch up with you.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to have, at some point, you're going to have to, or you must get a lot of exercise.
No, I'm not doing good with my diet right now.
Okay. We'll be accountability buddies.
So I'll just eat some more of this fudge.
I brought you some
and I'll be
vegetables.
okay.
These are protein bars.
Right. What else have you done this week for the community or in the community? Didn't you go downtown?
Yeah, I went downtown. That was really interesting. It's small, but it's interesting. There's a civil rights exhibit right next to where the presiding court is on the first floor.
In the old courthouse.
Right.
Not everybody knows what you're talking about.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, keep me honest. Yeah, you're right. The old courthouse, 100 De La Rosa, so the red brick one. And then it was I didn't have time because I had a case, but I looked as best I could. And what caught my eye was the sit-in at Josky's. And it also caught my eye how we were relatively peaceful here in San Antonio. Other cities had huge riots and demonstrations. And so they integrated and they did away with the Jim Crow laws here in San Antonio relatively peacefully. I'm not saying 100% peacefully, but compared to other cities, maybe because we were so much smaller back then. And then they had that actual chair. I guess they used to have more chairs. I don't know if this is the only one left, but it says Negro on it because it was a segregated courthouse. So if you were African American, you didn't just go walk into the courthouse and sit wherever.
Right.
There was a chair. So it was kind of educational.
Yeah, no, it's good to be reminded.
Shocking also, yeah. But it's good. I would recommend it. And it's open to the public. Anyone can go in.
Okay.
9 to 5.
Great.
There's a lot of other exhibits there, too, so this was just one section that's brand new. You've been in there.
Well, I've never seen that exhibit, I guess.
That's a new one.
Yeah, and I don't go down to the courthouse very often.
That's good.
I try and help people resolve their disputes.
Well, people hear you're on the case and they just dismiss. Oh, I don't want to tangle with that guy.
Right. So we're talking about the federal funding freeze, which was one of President Trump's executive orders. He made an executive order, and then the Department of OMB, Office of Management and Budget, I guess that's what it stands for, wrote a memo interpreting his executive order, and then there was a court case. So we're going to talk about all of that stuff.
Okay.
And then the court order, and then what happened after that. Then there were some people that brought up some constitutional issues with the whole federal funding freeze. And Shannon remembered that President Nixon tried to do this same thing back in 1975. Were you alive then?
I was 5 years old. I have to give credit to my friend. It's my friend.
Okay.
And she reminded me.
You weren't watching the news as a 5-year-old and
No.
criticizing President Nixon.
No, my friend is almost, I think she's 80, but sharp as a tack. And she's a
okay.
lawyer, served the public her entire life.
Yeah.
And she said, well, this reminds me of Nixon. And so then I went and
That's great.
I picked her brain as much as possible and looked it up some more.
Well, like I said before, this is not political.
Right.
I think I like to talk about the law because people on the news are just going to give you their opinion.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about the case. I want to talk about the executive order.
Right.
And so we'll do a little bit of that throughout the show. And then we'll mention some other things going on in San Antonio. Lexi Law Dog has been coming to the office with me, and she doesn't like the rain.
Oh, really?
She doesn't like when the ground is wet.
Uh-huh.
And so...
how can you tell? She just sniffs at it?
Yeah, she does her business and then wants to go back inside. Sometimes I think that she's dreaming of one day being a canine cop because she wants to smell everything.
Uh-huh.
And in the parking lot, she will walk around a car.
Uh-huh.
Like she's trying to find out what's in that car.
Right. I love your imaginary backstory for your dog. I love this. I'm seriously digging this. That's
yeah,
so cool.
that's her secret dream is to be a canine cop. Well, what do you think about the federal funding freeze? Don't give it all away. We have just a minute. What are your initial thoughts or what are your questions?
Why are they saying that this was causing chaos? Was that real or not? Is that a spin or is that real?
Well, after the break, I'll tell you about two separate people that told me how it was affecting them in just 2 days.
Okay.
I never talk to people about federal funding.
I never have either.
Because that's not the type of law that I practice, but somehow it just came up in our conversation. We'll be right back. We got to take a break. Stay tuned.
Do New Year's resolutions scare you, upset you, make your eyes roll? We've all known someone who's tried and failed to keep their resolutions. But what if your resolution could bring peace of mind to you and your loved ones? Resolve to get your affairs in order. Last will, living trust, tax-protected inheritance plan, a gift to your loved ones, and a lasting legacy. Call Marquardt Law Firm today at 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278. Or visit marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here with Shannon Salmon-Haas, San Antonio.
Should I do this?
There you go, the princess wave. We're talking about the federal funding freeze. And during the break, I was going to tell a joke, but Shannon wanted me to share it with you as well. How do frogs get to work? They hop to it.
Oh.
See, it's not inappropriate. It's just like a dad joke. Ha ha. So the federal funding freeze is based on President Trump's executive order.
It hits you later, right? It hits you later.
And after the executive order was issued, the Office of Management and Budget in Washington, D.C. issued a memorandum for heads of executive departments and agencies. This is Memorandum 25-13. And the memorandum required federal agencies to identify and review all federal financial assistance programs and supporting activities consistent with the president's policies and requirements. So what should we remind our listeners? That this is not political.
Yes, yes.
Because we know
say it
that
again.
President Trump is a polarizing person. Some
Right.
people really love what he's doing and some people don't.
Right,
We're not going to talk about that.
right.
So just because I'm mentioning his policies and the titles of his executive orders does not mean that I'm promoting that. I just want to talk about what it is so that we can get to the court case. Okay?
Yeah, I'm completely with you. And you can have, everyone has an opinion, but it's good in our country to, you like your wife a lot, but there's some things maybe you don't like the way she cooks eggs or something. And it's healthy to be able to just say, you know what? I don't like the way you cook those eggs. This is...
Well, I'd like to be a fly on the wall in your house.
Really? Why?
To hear what you tell Aaron that you don't like about. You don't have to say.
Let's
get back to the...
If there was anything, it would be healthy to just say it.
I'm glad you said that because here I am trying to tell people to avoid thinking politically because I don't want them complaining.
Yeah.
But you're saying, yes, please post your comments. We're on Facebook Live right now, Thursday evening, January 30th. Just don't be nasty.
Yeah,
or ugly.
There's no need.
Yeah,
it doesn't resolve
you can
anything.
Say, I dislike that or I like that. But again, we're taking too much time talking about what we're supposed to be talking about.
Okay.
So back to the executive order. You probably know that the federal government gives money to people and organizations and institutions, and or maybe you didn't know the extent to which the federal government was giving money. I asked ChatGPT about a list of organizations or industries that complained about this federal funding freeze.
Oh, wow.
And it just made me wonder, why was the federal government giving so much money out? But here's what I just found from the AI, the artificial intelligence, is that there's the healthcare industry gets federal funding, and so there's news articles about that. Public health organizations, education, universities, research institutions, they get federal grants for scientific and educational medical research. Public school systems, they get federal funding. And so there was, you asked about chaos. Why is there chaos?
Or is there?
Or was there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good question. Well, if you watch the news all the time like me, I did hear, lots of people complaining. And then if you get on Twitter X, I think that's like, it's like the box at the office that you put your complaints in.
Oh, yeah.
It's just all complaints.
Yeah. That's a good, I like that.
So you should definitely get on there.
Okay.
If you don't have enough negativity in your day, then you just supplement it with Twitter X. Defense and aerospace, they receive federal funding. Infrastructure, construction, companies involved in federally funded projects, highways, bridges, public transit systems. So that's one of the people that told me that she was afraid for her livelihood because she consults with public transit systems. And she said, I help them get federal funding. And so if the federal funding is cut, then I don't know what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I never run into this question.
Yeah.
It was just so interesting. And then I do serve on the board for a nonprofit, and I didn't even think that they would be affected by a federal funding freeze.
Right.
But then somebody on the board said, oh, by the way, we're going to be okay. And I thought, I didn't know we weren't.
Right. Yeah. It's something you don't really think about until something like this happens.
Right. It's like you never think it's going to happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is. That's how it comes to me. Technology and innovation, the National Science Foundation, energy and environment, the nonprofit sector, I mentioned that, agriculture, science, veteran service, law enforcement. So the federal government must be giving out lots of money for all these organizations and industries to get frightened that they were going to be out of business. So if anything, I think maybe people are more knowledgeable about what the federal government is doing.
Right. Yeah.
The money just doesn't come from any place. It comes from taxpayers. So, I think I should know, where my 2 cents is going.
Yeah. But now more people get it, how huge it is.
Right.
Have you ever seen that cartoon where the lady's a housewife and the husband says, "What do you do all day? You don't do anything." Have you seen that?
No.
And so he comes home one night and everything's in chaos. What happened? Kids hanging off the ceiling fan. Well, all that nothing that I usually do all day. Well, I didn't do it today. The house is like falling down. That's kind of like the federal government,
right.
That all of these things are happening behind the scenes and you don't really stop and think about it. We all kind of just took it for granted.
Right. So there was an executive order, then there was this memo, and then the National Council of Nonprofits filed a lawsuit against Office of Management and Budget. And did you read this case?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Well, there were a couple of areas of law that they brought up that when the president says we're cutting your funding, that affects the Administrative Procedures Act.
Okay.
And they said it affected the First Amendment right to free speech because the way that memo was written, it said if your views of president's policies are not in line, then you have to stop funding that.
Oh, that's deep.
And so that sort of brought in somebody's subjective thoughts about something.
But is that the DEI then?
Probably. Yeah, I think that was one of the policies that was most targeted.
Wow.
So then...
I did not even think of that First Amendment angle.
So then the president, or the Executive Office of Management and Budget, they established some guidance on the freeze. And that was on January 28th, said that in implementing the President Trump's executive orders, OMB issued guidance requesting agencies temporarily pause, to the extent permitted by law, grant, loan, or federal financial assistance programs that are implicated by the executive orders. Any program not implicated by the President's executive orders is not subject to the pause. And so if you're a scholar, if you're a lawyer, you could probably easily identify what was going to lose funding and what was not going to lose funding. But if you're not a lawyer, this is all just like legalese.
It sounded really broad.
But again, you're thinking like a lawyer. There's a lot of people out there that just don't even have any idea what you're saying.
I saw a video of a girl who thought she was going to, I don't know if it was real or not, but she was very upset because she was going to not get food stamps now.
Right.
And she was crying.
So people just hear federal funding freeze or pause, and they know that food stamps is a program that comes from the federal government. And so, I mean, you can't blame them for not understanding the complexities of federal regulations and funding. So anyway...
Do you think it was designed to, was it a design flaw, or, you know what, I don't want to ask that because that's going to...
That's a good question.
That's going to create a controversy.
No, we can put it out there. Was it a design flaw? I think the government frequently has trouble explaining itself because it's complicated. So that's why you have an attorney in your life. You call them and you say, how does this affect me? Or you turn on Talk Law Radio on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, or you go to YouTube and search for Talk Law Radio and look for the Lady Justice and the red, white, and blue logo.
Yeah.
You click subscribe and you start listening and watching Todd Marquardt and Shannon Roberta San Antonio talk about the law.
Only if you're cool.
Only if you're cool. So when we come back, we're going to talk more about this court case, and then we'll talk about what happened afterwards, because a lot of people probably are still wondering whether this is frozen or thawed.
Right.
So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube. We're talking about the federal funding freeze that happened just recently. And the reason why I'm still talking about it when other people think that it's been resolved is because there's a deeper issue that is that I'm worried about. And that's government power. And so I always like to bring it back to the Constitution, because that's the framework for this government that we live in. And I didn't hear anybody else say it except for Shannon. She found somebody who was talking about the structure of the federal government. We have 3 branches. We have the presidency. We have the legislature, the Congress, and we have the courts. And so having 3 branches of government is supposed to balance the power, right?
True that.
And so I'm not getting political here. I'm not saying whether I like President Trump or I don't. You can feel free. Shannon wants to know your comments on our Facebook Live. You can post your comments about what you like or what you don't like. I just want to talk about the law.
Yeah.
And so, because I'm not just worried about what's going on right now.
Right.
I'm worried about what's going to be happening 20 years from now.
That's how the law works. Yeah.
Right.
It builds on itself.
We want the structure to withstand everything that goes on from the day to day.
Definitely.
And so we have 3 branches of government for the balance of power. And we have, how many of you know that it's the House of Representatives that brings the budget? Well, I know that because I've been studying this government for a very long time.
Yeah.
But maybe not everybody knows that.
Or maybe you knew it and you were following the news cycle and something's happening every 5 seconds. So you hear about this and it just doesn't click right away. That,
well,
wait a minute, is that how this works?
And as I was preparing for this show, I was thinking Congress brings the budget, but they're not good at it. Mm-hmm. They don't have a good budget. I mean, this has been going on for like maybe 16 years or something, where Congress is having a hard time passing a budget.
Yeah. Well, true. I mean,
it's their job. They're supposed to do it. Uh-huh. And so if they're not going to do their job, that's when other people start trying to do things.
Okay.
I mean, but the courts can't take money from the government and spend it.
Uh-huh.
But I guess the president has some power.
Well, we don't want the most efficient form of government. I mean, North Korea has a very efficient form of government.
Yeah.
You know, there's one guy.
I agree with that. When people complain that the government doesn't get anything done, usually I'm with you. I say, yes, that's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, because your legislators, they represent you. Mm-hmm. You know, you voted. It's the most direct way where your voice can be heard, the way the founding fathers intended, you know, up there in Washington.
We have a representative legislature.
Yeah. And they're going to, you know, debate and argue. And yeah, we probably don't want to see how the sausage is made. You know, it's not pretty, but we don't want the alternative where it's
right, because then you have the extreme
right.
policies of any which way happening and not a whole lot of deliberation.
Yeah. But I can hear people complaining that it is inefficient. I mean, that is a valid concern.
Right. So let me go back to the Office of Management and Budget that wrote an explanation of what it was really trying to accomplish with the memo, which was based on the executive orders. There were some questions, frequently asked questions. Is this a freeze on all federal financial assistance? No, the pause does not apply across the board. It is expressly limited to programs, projects, and activities implicated by the President's executive orders, such as ending DEI, the Green New Deal, and funding non-governmental organizations that I'm not going to let them say their opinion here. Is this a freeze on benefits to Americans like SNAP or student loans? You saw a video of somebody who thought they were losing their food stamps.
Right.
No, any program that provides direct benefits to Americans is explicitly excluded from the pause and exempted from this review process, in addition to Social Security and Medicare, already explicitly excluded in the guidance. Mandatory programs like Medicaid and SNAP will continue without pause. So, here's another one. Is the pause of federal financial assistance and impoundment?
Mm-hmm.
You asked about that because that's where Nixon was overruled by a law
right.
about impoundment. No, it is not an impoundment under the Impoundment Control Act. It is a temporary pause to give agencies time to ensure that financial assistance conforms to the policies set out in the President's executive orders to the extent permitted by law. So they can always hide behind to the extent permitted by law.
Mm-hmm. I
think that's a really good thing that they mentioned there. Another thing that would have made it better is if the memo and the explanation had mentioned discretionary spending.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's mandatory spending, then maybe there are these laws that cannot pause.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But if it's discretionary, by definition, it is something that you can pause.
Right. I don't remember seeing the discretionary or mandatory language in the...
They didn't.
Yeah.
But I think that if they had, it would have been more okay.
Okay.
That's just my theory. So we're talking about the federal funding freeze or pause or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So there was one explanation of why Congress controls the purse.
Yeah.
That was an article that you sent me.
Yeah.
The House of Representatives, this is quoted from the Federalist 58. This was a discussion by the Founding Fathers about how the government should be structured.
Oh, okay.
So this is, like when I was in college, this is what the cool kids would do, sit down and talk about the Federalist Papers.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. Yeah, why Congress? I've been wondering that.
Well, it had to be somebody.
Right.
I
mean, I agree.
That's
wanted, a good choice.
One group to control the money and not give that to every branch.
Right.
But it says the House of Representatives cannot only refuse, but they alone can propose the supplies requisite for the support of government. They, in a word, hold the purse, that powerful instrument by which we behold, in the history of the British Constitution, an infant and humble representation of the people, gradually enlarging the sphere of its activity and importance, and finally reducing, as far as it seems to have wished, all the overgrown prerogatives of the other branches of the government. So it's supposed to control spending.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. And power.
That's right.
That whole checks and balance things.
Yeah. So there was a court case that issued a temporary restraining order on the pause. Now, I think it's easy to get confused when you're following the law and court cases when there's this executive order that stops spending.
Yeah.
And then there's this court case that stops the stop.
Right. Yes. I remember that in school. Wait. The appellee and the appellant.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's turned back on, except that the spokesperson for the president, the press secretary, said that the president revoked the memo. So the executive orders are still in place, but the memo that said that there was going to be a pause, that's rescinded.
Okay.
And so there's one judge, I don't have his name in front of me, said that that was a distinction without a difference. That the executive order's purpose was still to stop funding DEI programs, for an example, or the Green New Deal. And the memo was going to stop that, stop the spending too. It was just a way of explaining how it was going to be done.
Right.
So if the memo is rescinded, then I think that court case is moot, because the court case only said that there was a temporary restraining order on carrying out the objectives of the memo.
Oh, well, but they might amend it.
Right. Yeah.
They could amend it because
they could amend their pleadings.
Yeah. I wonder if they thought that through. How interesting.
So we're not sure where this is going to end up. I think that the purposes of the president are still there. You mentioned that during the break, that you had heard that this was going to be one of the objectives of President Trump's presidency, was to stop spending on certain programs.
Yeah.
And so it's not really a surprise.
Right.
Some people in the media said that they were surprised. Some people in government said that they were surprised, but maybe they should have known all along.
I could be wrong, but I think there's a lot of talk that it was very well planned and researched since even the first administration.
All right. Well, we're going to have to take another break. We'll come back for one more segment. We'll talk about some other things that are going on in the news that you might be interested in. So stay tuned.
And you'll have another joke.
Maybe.
Do New Year's resolutions scare you, upset you, make your eyes roll? We've all known someone who's tried and failed to keep their resolutions. But what if your resolution could bring peace of mind to you and your loved ones? Resolve to get your affairs in order. Last will, living trust, tax-protected inheritance plan, a gift to your loved ones, and a lasting legacy. Call Marquardt Law Firm today at 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278. Or visit marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, and Shannon's wearing a different outfit every segment. It's either sweater on or sweater off. But we're here talking about the federal funding freeze so that you know what's going on, because it's the traditional media, the TV, they don't tell you what the law is. They just tell you what they think is really going on in the back of everybody's mind. They just want to give you their opinion. I want to say exactly what the law is.
Right.
And we've been talking about the executive order, the memo, the guidance from the Office of Management and Budget.
The history,
right, the three branches of government and the structure of our government and why everything is slow, why things don't get done, and why that might be a good thing. And this is not political. I'm not saying whether these things are good or bad. If you know me well, you probably already know how I feel.
Yeah.
But that's no fun.
Yeah.
The fun part is knowing the law.
Yeah, for me too. You know what my goal is, Todd? I used to have this professor where you couldn't tell which way he leaned politically.
Yeah.
He would just pose questions. I don't think I'm pulling it off, but
No.
it's my goal.
Right. I do remember one of those professors too. I don't remember their names. But that was good.
Yeah.
Now that you bring that up, when I was thinking about going to law school, my dad had this family friend. We would all visit him because he had a boat. And so my dad bring his kids and we'd all play on the water. And so he was telling his friend, my son Todd wants to go to law school. And he said, Terry, no, don't let him do that.
Oh my gosh,
because
why?
they're going to ruin him.
Huh. What would they do to you?
Well, I don't know. But I really liked St. Mary's because it was religious. You know, you watch movies like The Firm with Tom Hanks.
Yes.
Not Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise.
That other guy, yeah.
Yeah, the other guy. And how brutal law school is and practicing law. But being at St. Mary's, Catholic institution, we had ethics.
Yeah,
So
they did. Yeah.
I really appreciated that because I wouldn't be good at doing underhanded things to get better grades.
Right. If you were in that environment.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jesus was there.
Yeah. That is a positive spin on that. But it was a very hard time. A lot of work.
No, and that's another reason I appreciated it because of Sister Grace.
Yeah.
She prayed for us.
Yeah.
And I mean, God listened. I'm here.
Yeah.
And you made it through as well.
Yeah.
Although you're probably smarter than I am, so that shouldn't be a surprise.
I'll say the reverse. You're probably smarter than I am.
Well, let's talk about what happened after the executive order, the memo, the explanation, the court case. There was another court case. So this was State of New York versus Donald Trump. And what's fascinating to me is that the state of New York brought a court case in the District Court of Rhode Island. And it was just asking for the same thing, to stop the freeze.
Oh, okay.
To thaw the freeze.
Right. Yeah. So they didn't go after the memo.
Well, this one wasn't as fascinating to me because, you know, the other court case had already gotten a result.
Yeah. So,
well, the results of this case remain to be seen. But I wanted to move on.
Do you ever think about the money? You know, does it ever... I know I focus on that a lot. I've said that before. But when I read all these cases and I see all these headlines, my brain just makes that cash register sound in my head. You know, all the money.
All the money being spent
litigation.
on litigation.
Lawyers are expensive.
Right. Well, I wish
we didn't have to fight.
I was thinking that in a different way because I don't know how many executive orders President Trump has had, but he's just going to keep pumping those out.
You think so?
Because people that don't like those policies are going to have to file lawsuits.
Right.
And so I was thinking, maybe I need to get into the business of filing lawsuits against the government. You know, because,
plenty of work.
right now, there's going to be a lot of work.
And
there's
it
all
is
these
very
lawsuits.
interesting. I did not even think of, because there were so many. Yeah. I didn't even. That's very forward thinking of you.
I've told you
Good
about
job.
my dream of being deputized
yes.
by the immigration court,
yes.
so that I could be an immigration judge
right.
from my desk in San Antonio.
Right.
Likewise, I could file these lawsuits against the federal government too.
Yeah.
Or I just have this idea that it would be more profitable to be filing the lawsuits than to be working for the federal government and defending them.
Uh-huh. Because it's like a salary.
That's what I would imagine.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's going to be part of somebody's budget, right?
Uh-huh.
So I wonder I mean, could one of these government agencies go broke trying to defend themselves, or?
I would think so. Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, I think so. They're basically wanting federal workers to quit, right? Is that what's going on at the moment?
Well, that was another executive order where President Trump wanted the federal workforce to come back to the office.
Right.
And then there was one that said that if you retired early, or if you quit, you could accept a buyout.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard one commentator ask, where in the law is that even allowed? Because if you work for an agency and there's pay systems already in place.
Okay.
And so how can the president say that you're going to receive 8 months' salary?
Oh, okay.
You know, where does his authority to create that policy begin?
What a great question. Yeah, that's a nice little rabbit hole.
So I think we don't know. You ask, is there chaos? I don't know if there's chaos, but there's lots of questions.
I think you only told one of your stories.
Oh, you want to know my joke? Oh, the other person?
Oh, yeah, let's hear your joke.
Okay, first the joke, then the story. What do you call a cow that likes music? A musician. So my other story is no, I think I did. I said
you did,
yeah. I belong to a board of a nonprofit, and somebody came to me asking about the funding. But
oh yeah, that was the second one. Yeah, you're right.
Let's talk about what's going on in or near San Antonio. This is a completely different subject. We'll update you on the federal funding freeze when we have more information. I'm sure that was entertaining enough. Let's talk about what's going on in San Antonio. My son texted me this morning and said, "Are you okay? Did you survive the earthquake?"
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I didn't even know there was one."
Yeah.
Well, there was one down in Karnes County that some people in downtown San Antonio felt.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, that's crazy. We usually don't get earthquakes here.
Right.
I wonder if it's near the detention facility because there's a big immigration detention.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
In Karnes.
Yeah, no, now that you say that, I remember that too, but I wouldn't think that that's related.
Well, you're not my brain.
No,
my
okay.
random brain.
No, but I'm sure they wondered, like, what's happening now?
Yeah.
Another thing that's happening in San Antonio is kids are getting the flu.
Uh-huh.
There's a news report that said nearly 650 students and 60 staff members called out sick with various illnesses. I guess they're calling it the flu. Maybe they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Have any of your kids been sick?
Yeah.
Oh.
A little bit, but it wasn't scary sick.
No, I think that comes with being a kid and being around lots of other people.
Mm-hmm. And it was recently. I didn't realize it was part of a surge. You know.
Well, isn't this flu season?
I don't keep track of it.
I'm not sure how long flu season goes. But if you're out there wondering about the flu, make sure you wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, take your vitamins, say your prayers.
Mm-hmm. Eat some soup.
Eat some soup. That's one of my dad's remedies is He says there's something about soup that helps you get better.
Yeah. Well, those grandmas can't be wrong.
Right.
It's the marrow from the bones. It is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because when you slow cook, like a chicken, you get all the... That's why people eat bone broth these days.
Do you get the same benefit from microwave soup?
Not in my opinion.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I learned something today. Bone marrow
Oh, you didn't know that?
in the soup.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm going to have to leave the chicken on the bone. Now I know.
Now we've come full circle.
Now I understand. I'm so sorry that
You maligned that caldo.
I probably did. But
when
now,
it was just por tu bien.
I'm glad that I ate it now. And Hulk Hogan, the famous wrestler, used to say, take your vitamins and say your prayers. And
Yeah.
I'm going to take that from his speech today. Everybody stay healthy, stay well, be nice on the roadway, and we'll talk to you later. Well, before we go, what wisdom do you have? What encouraging word does Shannon have for the audience today?
We're all in this boat together, so we might as well be nice to each other. Doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you're on, you treat your fellow human with kindness.
We can still be kind.
Yes.
We can disagree and be kind.
Yeah, it's possible.
We'll talk to you later.
Goodbye.